used to and got pretty burnt out, worn out, and decided, I needed change. And so she took her life in a totally different direction. And now she also helps others go from burnout and stressed to thriving and blessed. And I want everyone to welcome Jane Bromley. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And how are you this morning?
Yeah, I'm really good, actually. I'm in Mexico City. I've just arrived, and I've been in Mexico for about 3 months now. And I'm actually heading back to Europe in 2 days' time. But Mexico's an incredible place, and it's been a real experience, actually.
Oh, we'll get to hear about that experience in just a moment. So, what drove you to you've been traveling a lot. You were like a world traveler. You've been traveling a lot. So, kind of what led to that odyssey?
Well, it probably goes back to my parents, to be honest. Before I was even born, my parents drove across the whole of Africa in a sports car, including across the Sahara Desert, which
Oh my
was
goodness.
quite an experience. Looking back on it, I think I nearly didn't exist because the Sahara experience was pretty much a dramatic one. And therefore I grew up just traveling, and I tried to ignore it for a while. I tried to settle down, and I worked quite a lot in the corporate world. I was working with chief execs, boards of directors, people at all sorts of different levels of corporate, some very big corporates as well. And then, long story short, I got to the point where I just seemed to be pushing and pushing. And I think it's part of our capitalist society these days, isn't it? People are just asked, can you do a little bit more? Can you push through? Can you go the extra mile? And I think that's fine if it's once in a while. But I think we've gone a bit crazy. I think people have gone to the point where we're expected to push through all the time. We're supposed to run all the time. We're supposed to behave like machines. It's almost as if we're trying to turn our bodies into machines. So I particularly love the topic of your podcast, because if you're trying to behave like a machine, the peace goes. And I think we're more akin to trees or nature, where we like trees shine because they have a growth time and they have a pause time, and you never see a tree rushing at anything.
No, trees don't rush. They move at their own speed.
They do, and as a result,
100%.
yeah, and as a result, they are beautiful, and we get so much. If you've ever hugged a tree, it's such a peaceful experience. It's really lovely. So anyway, just I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was doing my job. I was doing my best with my job. I was prioritizing my clients above myself. I even got the balance, I thought, quite well. So I wasn't just working flat out. I was also having fun flat out. And I say fun, it was lots of exercise, lots of activities I enjoyed. And I thought, what I didn't realize is no one was there to tell me the symptoms that you have before you burn out.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd had a me to tell me, because I actually hit a wall. I just didn't realize it was coming. And one day I just didn't get out of bed. One day I was sleeping 16 hours around the clock. And even in the remaining 8 hours, I didn't have energy to do anything else. And I didn't see it coming. And I think, although I had it to an extreme degree, I think there are 63% of people in the Western world say that they are burning out every year.
Yeah.
And And I think it's to various different levels, but if we keep on doing it, I think it's what happens is our nervous system and the correlation between the pituitary, the prefrontal cortex, and the adrenal glands goes out of kilter. So your ability to go into what's called the sympathetic nervous system, which is where you can run away from tigers, you can save yourself, etc. We just get locked in it. It becomes a chronic systemic fight and flight response.
Right. Yes.
And the problem is that, like the trees, we actually shine and we do our best work and we enjoy life when we only spend a bit of time there and when we come out into the parasympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic nervous system is where you do feel peace and you do feel you just feel really able to link between different challenges. You can see solutions, you can see the light, and everyone says, wow, that person, it just clicks for them. And that's because your parasympathetic nervous system is putting you into a really good place. And what happened is I got stuck, as like so many people. I've got loads of people talking to me, coming to me and saying, my energy is just not good. And it's when you're stuck in sympathetic nervous system, you have to come back out in order to heal, back out in order to relax, back out in order to feel that peace and that relaxation and to feel so incredibly good. So I went through a long time. I'm not going to tell you how long it took me to heal because I think it might frighten you. But then I did come out of it. But then, I don't know, it was just too easy to go back into the fight and flight response. And I wasn't managing. There was no one there to help me, to show me. And once you have hit that wall, then it's actually, I don't think you're ever quite the same again. So one of the things I want to do is I want to help people realize what the symptoms are before they get to that point.
Yeah.
But to answer your question in a very long-winded way, I then eventually just didn't know. I didn't know the resources I have now, and therefore I just decided to become a nomad. And so I'm a nomad, and a bit by bit I've allowed myself to heal. Oh, that's interesting use of words. And I work online, but I have freedom to go off and do things, and I have now found a deep peace. I have learned to love myself. I no longer prioritize everyone else above myself, and I no longer do any of the things that people do when they're burning out, because life's meant to be fun.
It is. We hear that a lot. And what you've described, a lot of people aren't familiar with, you might be familiar with it, is the boiled frog syndrome.
Oh, it's so true.
It sneaks up on you. And as someone who I myself, in addition to being a Reiki master, am a self-care coach, helping people because, like you, I didn't have anybody. And I had to, as they say, pull myself up from the bootstraps in heal in a lot of ways. And I've become very good at saying no, or this is what I can do, or, taking a step back and not reaching that point. Because when you reach that point, you just couldn't get out of bed. I was taking a one-way train to the hospital. And as a single mom, that's just not a good thing to do.
Well, even without being a single mom, obviously as a single mom, it's a disaster. But even I would say for any person to treat themselves and to get to that situation. And our society is just teaching us some really, really bad beliefs.
Absolutely. No company is worth your health.
No, exactly.
No company is worth your health. And I agree with you, and I am a firm believer. It's like they'll replace you in a heartbeat. It's like,
absolutely.
And we are required in today's world to do more with less.
Indeed.
And that's leading to a lot of burnout, like you said. And the scary part is that boiled frog, you don't know you're cooking until you're done.
No, no, indeed you don't, because it's like the frog. You know, if you were dumped in the boiling pan, you'd go, no, I'm not staying here, I'm out of here. But it's happened so gently that we just don't realize it. But the interesting thing is, I deal with so many people now who, for years, often, they have thought they had no choice. They have thought it was either give up their job, and they've got a family as well, and or it was themselves, and they thought there was no choice. But funnily enough, even in the situation where it seems like you're being consistently, it seems like there's no choice. Strangely enough, within 2 weeks, every single person that I've worked with so far has actually found ways to ease their load, to find time for themselves, to find space for themselves, to do some really powerful things. And within 9 weeks, they've turned their life around, and they haven't even changed their job. They haven't changed their job. And don't get me wrong, there are some companies where you're just working for a boss and you just need to get out.
Yeah.
But the problem is, it's this whole capitalist rush, rush, rush on the hamster wheel thing is in so many different companies that I think it's good that people can actually find solutions within there, because otherwise you're just going to be bouncing from company to company to company. And I'm going to be honest, I set up my own business and I wasn't any nicer to myself. The pressures of running your own business, unless you've learned the lessons first, you can end up pushing yourself just as hard and having the stress of not having consistent income, etc.
Absolutely. And that's what I think in the culture and the systems in which we were raised, like you said, the capitalistic systems, it's go, 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 go. There is no stop. And you feel like a machine. But honestly, when you step away and you take a moment to step away, or, I'm a firm believer in breaks. In like people are going on vacation, but you can reach me. No, you're on vacation. Who's your backup? And if the
Yes,
company doesn't have a backup in place, then it's your boss because
yes,
you're on vacation.
it's true. Yes. And I totally agree with you about the vacations, but what I'm finding as well is that people are trying to get through the remaining 48 weeks a year, ignoring what they need in order to survive for those 4 weeks or whatever that they have off each week, each year. And I don't, you can't shine like that. So there's also really good ways. So obviously things like meditation bring you straight, it can, when you find a meditation that suits you, can bring you straight into peace. But you really need to stand back. And I've got, even in the first week of the course I offer, there are some questions that lead you to define, if you were to define the life and the style in your current job, but that you would love, that would feel good, that would feel easy, that would give you that sense of waking up in the morning and thinking, I'm looking forward to work. Wow, how amazing is that? And that feeling of getting home at the end of the day and just thinking to yourself, great, I can sit down, I can have a little bit of time for me, and then I've got enough energy to do the things to live my life the rest of the day. So in order to do that, I think you need, well, this is my view, I'm hoping that you're the same perspective, but like you can take pauses. So even after every telephone call, after every meeting, just stop. It's like a baby holiday. It's like a baby holiday. No one, just, even if you have to disappear into the toilets to get some space, or go outside, or whatever it is, just a quick, or even just, but hopefully you've just got a quiet corner where you work and you can just pause. And the more you pause, then that's just one of many things that you can do to consistently nurture yourself.
Yes. Absolutely. And speaking of peace, Jane, how do you personally, how do you define peace?
Yes, I saw you ask that question on a previous session. I don't. Peace is a really hard thing for me to define. If I say a peace beyond all understanding, if I say a sense of just nothing really matters, a sense of uplifting. I think naturally we have if we are in a good place, we have this feeling of almost expansion and of being lifted. And I think it's almost the absence of weight, the absence of your mind rushing around, the absence of busyness, the absence of oh of I have to do anything. I mean, it's just that beautiful gap that sits and and we've all been there. I think it's one thing to define it, but we've all experienced peace at times. And it's just a case of when you if you're too close to this line where you're push, 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 then you cannot feel that sense of peace. But if you pull yourself back into what I call the nurture zone, then the more you allow that sense of peace to come through, then the more you're going to feel in a better and better space, because peace is incredibly, incredibly nurturing, incredibly healing, incredibly good for us.
It is. And in that case, how are some of the ways that you find peace? What are some of the things you do? Some of the places you travel? How do you find peace?
Yes. And I think I can answer it for myself, but also for my on behalf of what I've seen from my clients. Because for me, people go, "Oh, well, it's all right for you. You're traveling. You can just go off and travel." But I think the things that I've seen work really well for people is I find that since I found a good way to meditate that suits me, doing it twice, 15 minutes twice a day. If you can't find 15 minutes, then 10. But to be honest, the more I do that, when I was just meditating once a day, it helped, but it didn't help me to stay there. So I find that it's a case of drip feeding. It's a case of asking myself, what can I do to be centered? And there's lots and lots of ways. Once you get into that mindset, there's masses. So there's the pauses we talked about, but there's also relaxation. Then I've got meditations that I offer and do for myself as well, where you notice how you're held by the chair you're sat on. Not so much the one I'm sat on at the moment, because I'm in some place and the chair's not very good, but generally the chair gives you that great sense of being held. And the floor, I mean, isn't it amazing? The earth doesn't just give us a ground to walk on, but it also holds us in place, keeping us safe. And then in addition, it provides all the food and the sun. Well, not the sun, obviously, doesn't come from the earth, but the rain and all the things that we need. And it looks after us. So I think the more I've learned about the magnificence of our planet, of our universe that holds us and protects us, the more I personally have gone, wow, this is just mind-blowingly stunning. So there's all things like that. Understand another thing I think is giving yourself the more you know about your body and how incredible it is and how hard every single cell, your foot, how hard it tries, your legs, how hard they try, your heart all day long beating for you. And I think once you realize that, then you can't but love your body. You get beyond all this media rubbish, and you just go, wow, my body loves me so much. And I think there's so many different, so obviously in addition, going into nature, breathing, yoga, I did our sound healing yesterday. We have a multitude of options that are available to us to keep ourselves out of that massively stressed area and to put ourselves into that nurture zone. It's just that we almost think, oh, I don't know that I have the time to nurture myself. So as a result, we continue being that frog, boiled, boiled, and boiled, and boiled. But in addition, we don't allow ourselves to shine. And we are supposed to shine the way the children do. From that beautiful poem by Mariana Williamson. And when we don't give ourselves enough nurturing, we don't allow ourselves to be in peace, and we are a shadow of ourselves. And then, I mean, if you had a car, if you put really poor quality fuel into your car, you wouldn't get annoyed with the car and it didn't work well. And yet we think that we can give ourselves the absolute minimum of looking after ourselves. And then, although you understand the car won't drive properly, we're then, why won't my mind work faster? Why can't I see the solutions? We give ourselves a hard time, and we're cruel to our bodies and we're cruel to ourselves, and we're being utterly, utterly unfair to ourselves. And if you've got children, I think what's even worse is that the role model that you really want to give to your children? Is that really how you want to inspire your children to live for the rest of their lives? Because it was bad enough I did it to myself. I don't have children, but I've got loads of clients with children. And it's really important for them to be there for their children. And when they start to realize that they can have more fun, they can feel better, and that they can actually inspire their children to live a different way, they're like, yes, let's do this.
Absolutely. So you've kind of answered the third question. So let's go back to what brings you peace and all of those things that you just stated. What is your favorite thing to do, your personal favorite thing to do to bring yourself peace?
I don't think I'm made that way. I think that it depends on where I am at the moment. I think the only thing that matters to me to be in that delicious, peaceful, centered space. And when I'm there, I have this energy of the universe running through me. But to be honest, no one thing is like, for instance, when I'm with people, it's harder sometimes, depending on the situation. It can be easier or it can be harder to be centered and peaceful. But then if I feel it, if I feel the need, I'll be actively relaxing and actively just noticing my breath coming in and out. If I've got only a minute of space, I'll potentially just pause and relax and notice that I'm held. If I've got an hour or two, I'll go for a hike and I'll hug a tree, because they are incredibly peaceful beings. And whenever I hug a tree, I'm amazed how much more peaceful I feel. If I've got 3 days, then I'll disappear off on a jaunt somewhere into the jungle or wherever it is. I don't think there are lots of things. I think anything that gives you joy is a really, really, it's like a quick fix, or doing things because it feels fun and there's no reason whatsoever. Just doing something with not for any aim in the world other than the fact that you feel good doing it. Does that, I sort of turned your question around. Was that okay?
Yes, that's fine. It's a question that it allows us to focus on some of the things that, like, okay, you've given a few instances on how you would help others. It's always important to kind of go within and see how we would do it for ourselves.
Well, with me, it's the meditation twice a day gives me the sort of the baseline, and then it's easy for me to just do things, little tiny droplets of peace, of calm during the day, however busy I am. If I get that sense, then I have a place to go back to. Does that answer what you're looking for?
Yes. That gives you meditation is a beautiful thing. It does give us that baseline, and it doesn't really matter when I like to either start or end and, start, end, or start or end my day with meditation. I've done it in the middle of the day in the car because it's just like, okay, I need to calm down. The situation was stressful, got out of hand. I need a minute. Like, to your point, I need a minute. And that minute is me physically leaving the situation. It's physically leaving the situation and calming down and, returning when I'm in a better mind frame.
Yes. And I'm guessing that because you've done this for a while, it's also getting out of your head and into your body, using your breath, using relaxation, using just noticing how you feel in your body. Yes. So you move yourself physically, and then you can then allow yourself to feel that peace. Would you agree?
I would agree to an extent. For me, if I'm angry, I'm fully in my body and I need to kind of not escape, but recenter.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's not a matter of coming back into my body. It's a matter of recentering and regrounding and calming down and saying, okay, not so much why did this happen? It's like, okay, so how can I look at this from a different angle, a different perspective? What did I bring to the situation? And how do I say, okay, this is what I said, this is what I did, and then go and say, okay, this is what they said, this is what they did. What were they trying to communicate to me?
Okay.
It was part of the actively listening to understand, not to
Yes.
respond. So that's kind of like what I do to step away from a situation, or like being in a stressful, like crowds. I used to be okay with crowds. Crowds now really do stress me out. And it's just kind of like breathing and being mentally prepared to be in that environment. So there
Yes.
I'm returning to my body. But there are a lot of other ways to, find peace. And that's, like you said, going into nature, going for a hike, sitting by the water. Water is a very powerful thing for a lot of the individuals that I work with and a lot of people that I'm very close to.
Yeah.
Water,
Water's, yeah,
calm.
it cleans you, doesn't it? As
Yes,
it's flowing. It's fab.
yes, and, like, spending time in the ocean for a lot of people. I like the lakes. There's, less likelihood of a predator. But it is very cleansing. It does cleanse the senses. It does, cleanse the aura, so those are very important as well.
Yes, yes. And another thing that I find, I have a visualization which I also help with my clients, and because you've got the water, but if you haven't got water with you, then I have this thing where you feel the ground, and then you feel the energy coming. First of all, the energy coming from the earth, looking up and supporting you, but then the energy coming from the center of the universe, and they come together, and it's a way of, I find it very effective way of just nurturing and just giving myself clean energy, clean, beautiful, peace, joy, loving energy, in even when I'm nowhere near water, because it would be lovely, wouldn't it, if we always just had water just there.
On hand, yeah, that's like no, but grounding is also very important.
Yes,
So,
yes,
to your point, if there's no water, you can always, like, put your feet on the ground, barefoot
yes.
on the ground. I mean, that's not always ideal because, if you're hiking, you definitely want your shoes on. But if you can go stand outside in a garden or go stand outside in a field or something where you don't require shoes, it's much more powerful. I don't know what it is for you, but for me, it's much more powerful.
It is. And in addition, quite often I'm in a business, I'm in a building, I'm not in a position to do that. Or alternatively, I'm quite often in a place where there's some there's some things in the grass that I really wouldn't want my feet to get anywhere close to. So one thing I've found really interesting is that, first of all, I anchor myself, I ground myself with a trunk right into the center of the earth. And but also I imagine feeling the earth, and I imagine my feet on the ground. And I think, because we are energy, I think although in an ideal scenario, it's great to be able to get out every day and actually walk on grass. If you're not, we are amazingly good at, when I feel the earth, just now I can feel the earth in between my fingers, and it's so grounding, and I can feel my feet walking on delicious grass. And amazing how that works when you haven't got access to grass and you haven't got access to soil.
Yes. And so now when you work with corporations and you're working with a group of people, say, it seems like you work with some very top international corporations, and when you're working with a group of people, how are you able to bring everybody together at once for that like singular moment of peace?
I don't do that now. I work with individuals who come from different places. So what I did before is I worked for chief execs and boards of directors, and I got them all to create strategies and to look after their customers and their employees much better in order to grow faster. Ha ha. But in a way that was actually good for everyone involved. But I do feel a bit about it now.
I can understand that.
Yes, exactly. But I do think that there's something interesting about it. So I do think that corporations have a big problem now. They've been pushing their people for so long that they're actually making it harder for companies to grow, because their people are on their knees dragging themselves around. And so personally, when I'm working with people, and I work with individuals now in groups, and at some point I'm going to work with chief execs to try and create the better environment in their organizations. But at the moment I'm working with groups of individuals, and I think the moments of peace with the groups are more about each person getting it for themselves and then sharing with the other people. And then it's amazing how that works, isn't it? So if someone next to you has a different perspective, sometimes it just confuses you, but often when you share, then even they've understood it from me, they've got it 90%, and then all of a sudden someone in the group shares there, and they're like, oh my gosh, oh, of course, and they're suddenly there. And there's two things about it. One is we think it's all about verbal communication, but actually, no, exactly. Just by me being in a peaceful place makes it easier for my clients to reach a peaceful place, even if when before the session they were in anything but a peaceful place. So by me being, and by me allowing peace to run through me, then that energy is immediately just allowing the whole group to experience it. And then once one or two get it, then they are also helping the whole thing, and the whole energy changes.
Yes, and it can be very powerful, because I've done Reiki circles, and when you give and receive energy, it's very very powerful and very important. And knowing whose energy you're going to mix with and who doesn't, you can feel someone's energy before you even interact with the person.
Yeah. Do you mind if I ask you a question about that? So do you know the term samskaras?
I've heard the term.
Okay, so samskaras for me is just blocked energy. So I have this question in my head all the time as to basically, sometimes I don't necessarily connect with another person, but actually we are all one. We are all that life force energy. And at their heart, everyone is just wanting to be loved. Everyone's wanting to shine. Everyone's wanting to be full of that life force energy. And so sometimes I'm attracted to someone easily, and sometimes I stand away from that other person. But actually, I have a suspicion that it's just that blocked energy in them that causes the barrier. Is that your perception?
No, not mine.
Okay.
Because you can block someone very easily and energetically, just as easily as accept someone.
Yeah.
And it's about the energy that is put out, because these are just my thoughts and perspective on it. You could be in the same room with the same 3 people. I can give you great energy, and this other person, I don't know what it is. I don't know if they're putting out negativity to me and I'm putting out negativity to them, and just trying to figure out what's going on. But the same person can be giving you awesome energy. So you're receiving awesome energy from 2 people, but these 2 people are not on the same wavelength. They're not on the same energetic current. And it could be where we are on our energetic and spiritual journeys.
Yeah.
The low and the high and the low vibes. I've had this encounter many times, and the first thing I do is ask myself, what am I doing?
Yes.
Why is this affecting me? How am I contributing? What can I do to diffuse? And if I do all of those things and I still feel like I'm receiving bad energy, negative energy, and I don't want to say negative, but that like just get it like a repelling energy that could be good or bad. It could be either way. It's just we don't vibe. I've at least taken the time to say, okay, what is it in me? Am I giving out some sort of block? And how do I correct that? Why is this affecting me? Did I do something? And if I can answer all of those questions and try and self-correct, and I'm still receiving that blocking energy, that's on that individual at that time. So while we're all in the same energy and we're all of the same, like we're all drops of rain in the ocean, and the ocean is huge, but we're all dripping at the different time. So we're not going to land at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Interesting perspective. Great. Thank you.
Yes, I've actually never received that question before. So those are my thoughts and perspectives, which are, different than yours.
Well, I think it's what you said. We are at different points in our energetic spiritual journey. And for me, that is because of your energetic blocks, which are the samskaras. So we're just seeing it slightly different perspective, that's all.
Yep. And the one question I really like to ask in it's not so much that vein, but in a little bit of it is, let's use the corporate example, because I'm interested in this one. When you go back into that and help people, understand their employees burning out, and like how to changing this, because and in all honesty, corporate wellness programs are they're not highly rated, because we're going to do this for you, but we're not going to allow you to use it. And I've seen that a lot as someone who has worked in HR. We're going to offer you a wellness program, but you're going to be penalized for using it. It's like, we want you to have good mental health, but
or even they're just not very effective. It's almost like some of them are designed by people who are up in their heads, as opposed to people who've actually lived through it and know what makes a difference.
Right. So my last question I always like to ask is, what's in your toolbox? So you're talking to these people and you can see they're stressed out. You can see that this just does not compute. What do you mean my employees can't operate like machines, and this is going to be like, this is, oh my God, that you could see them like short circuiting. What's in your toolbox? What would you do to quickly bring them back to center, quickly bring them back to peace, and try and get them to level out, to see it your way?
Okay, so as I said, I work with individuals now as opposed to managers and directors of, well, that's not true. I generally work with female managers so that when I've worked with them, they can actually help their whole teams. So that works really well. And in terms of my toolbox, what I'm going to just briefly run through it. There's a whole stack of things in my toolbox, but first of all, people find it more comfortable to start in their heads. So I go through a whole series of questions where they work out what's their way of working. What is a way that's actually going to make them feel, yeah, that feels good. I could get excited about that. That would be, oh yes, I actually might enjoy my job again. And then once we've looked at that, and we looked at it not just in terms of work, but also in terms of home, because we are whole beings. The idea of splitting it is crazy. And then work with them, and we look at very specific situations where they are getting too much stress, where it's just sending them crazy. And so, for example, one lady I worked with very recently, she'd set up all sorts of processes, and yet she wasn't, when people were saying to her, oh, can you just do it for me, please? She wanted to help so much that she wasn't actually being fair to herself. And so she went from hating her job, making all sorts of mistakes, which is what happens to us when we are horrible to ourselves. And from that point of she wanted to look for another job, but she was too exhausted. She kept on bursting into tears. When she was at home, she was feeling at her all-time low ebb. And we very quickly looked at the situation, and within 2 hours, she had worked out some ways, and she was like, yeah, why didn't I think of this before? And you just can't. You're too close to it, and you're not seeing the wood for the trees. That's why it's good to have someone help you. And then she was within no time, people were saying to her, wow, you are just really on top of the world, aren't you? Things have changed. You're in such a good place, and your performance is skyrocketing. Not because she's pushing herself harder, because she's pushing herself less hard, because she's setting herself up for success, because she's actually prioritizing and being kind to herself instead of everyone else. And then from that, what I get them to do is because one of the challenges that we have is that we've been in this fight or flight response, this chronic situation for so long, that we can't just easily drop out of it. You probably have noticed, some of you who have just been in that situation, rushing for so long, you'll notice that when you go to relax, it's not as easy any longer. When you go to try and get back into peace, where did the peace go? Why can't I get back? When things happen at work or at home that never used to bother you, or even with your children that never used to bother you, and you overreact, and then you feel bad because, like, why did I overreact? For instance, with me, I was working with a chief exec just shortly, a few months before I hit the wall, and the chief exec, I was supposed to be working with his board of directors the following day, and he hadn't given me some information. And at 11 o'clock, he finally contacted me. This is 11 p.m. at night before a major board meeting that I have never worked with his board before. And I'm used to working with leadership teams, but no one had been like that. But he had challenges himself. But he screamed at me down the phone, not because of anything I'd done. He screamed at me because of the stress that he was under. Yeah. And normally I would have just said, I'm not going to tell you his name, obviously, but yeah. I would have said, I'm really sorry, but we cannot work this way. This is, you and I have to be partners. We have to have total trust in each other. And I would have just stood my ground, and I would have, instead, I hyperventilated on the phone with my client. Why? because my stress, my nervous system was so tight. And that's what we're doing to ourselves. And that's why it's, so then I take them through a series of a process where they're giving their nervous system what it needs. It's giving their nervous system the relaxation, giving their nervous system the peace, they're giving their nervous system the support it needs, they're giving their nervous system the safe place it needs, and then they're becoming a channel where they're supported from below, they're supported from above, and they're just allowing nurturing, loving, peaceful white and silver light to come through them. Because this isn't just about your brain and finding the solutions in your brain. You have to allow your body to heal, your nervous system to heal. And then after that, the next stage that I do, and this is really key, I teach them how to become their own best friend, because that's a major underlying cause why people are actually feeling like the frog in the boiling water. Yes, a lot of it is down to our society, a lot of it is down to our jobs, but a lot of us also is down to the fact that we aren't believing ourselves. And when things get really hard, I know I was there, when things are really hard, what do? We give ourselves a hard time and we say, why didn't you do better? And it's an appalling way to treat ourselves. And then I get them to pull it all together so that it's not just a logical experience, it's an embodied, it's a lived experience, and the whole thing is pulled together. And that's the first part. And then I do a series of webinars with bi-weekly webinars with other people so that everyone can learn from everyone. And it allows them to go from what has become a good process that they've learned to something that they're doing day in, day out. So until it becomes such a habit that it's a rock solid habit. And there are workbooks, because you can't just go from super stressed to suddenly beautifully peaceful. It's a process that takes a bit of time. And then so you can do things that allow you to relax a little bit, but if you really want relaxation to become your default, peace to become your default, you need to allow yourself the time and the space. And the whole thing is designed to be done in the shortest amount of time because everyone's busy. So the first 5 steps that I mentioned take 3 hours, and then it's an hour every other week with the workbooks, and the workbooks take a short amount of time because the last thing I want to do is get anyone more stress. We're about reducing the stress.
Yes, and that's beautiful. And yeah, it is a process.
It is. And as a result, you get people who for years have felt they've dragged themselves around suddenly going, I am really excited about today. And at the end of the evening, they sit down with their family and they say, I've still got some energy left. What should we do? We can go and do something fun. And their family turns around and says, what? You never have time to do anything. You're always exhausted in the evening. And they also report things of, I no longer feel guilty any longer with that I'm not present for my family. I've realized that that there are ways to find time. And as a result, my family, and I've always felt guilty because I never felt I had enough energy or enough presence to be there for them as much as they want. But now it's like a gift I give myself. And the laughter comes back and they're having so much fun. And in addition, as I mentioned before, with everyone I've seen so far, their performance just floats to the surface. So all of that attempt to try and be good enough for their job, as soon as they take the pressure off and give themselves what they need, then their bosses go, hey, you're doing better and better. That's really good to see.
Yes. Yes. So I am so grateful that you came on this morning, Jane, and talked peace with us and give us some handy dandy tips that we could pull out. And I'm glad you're enjoying Mexico. You'll be leaving back home soon. So
Yeah, I've got two and a half a day trip to get home. Can you believe that? It's amazing.
yes, but you'll enjoy it and be peaceful at it.
I will. Peace is just delicious. So it's been lovely.
Beautiful. So I want to thank you again for coming on. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, though, your contact information is in the description. And Michael says, thank you, Jane, for being part and giving your tips to us today.
Great. Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone. And if I can just help anyone, if you've got any questions or if I can help, then I just want people to not do what I did. I don't want anyone else to hit that wall.
No, thank you. Thank you. That wall sounds like it's painful.
It was.
So we'll put your contact information into the description. It's already there, so anybody can reach you. Do you have a website?
No, I just use my Facebook page, which is one of the contact bits that you have.
Yes.
Life's too short to have to spend lots of time on back-end systems.
So again, like someone who's done that before.
Indeed. Thank you. It's been really, really interesting talking to you, Janice. I've really enjoyed it.
As have I. And I would like to thank you. And I'll put you in the green room. I'll be right back.
Okay.
So thank you, Jane, for being on. It was really nice to talk to you and learn all that you have to share with us about peace and bringing joy into our lives. Next week, I have Tammy Vincent on. She is an RN who has overcome a lot of struggles with being the daughter of alcoholic parents. And she's going to teach us some helpful tips and tricks to bring peace to our life if we have addicts in our lives and if we have adolescents who are going through that as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today and joining Jane, and you have a great rest of your day.